Hare Ramo, 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, lock the doors. You're the only one who can hear the class. The new policy. If you're late, the doors will get locked. Yeah. Well, now that you're here early, if you have any questions, you can ask now while we're waiting. Is it private or general? Private? Yeah. Yeah.
So I was thinking, how do we build strong, meaningful relationships with devotees?
How do we build?
So many devotees. We do have close relationships with some whom we communicate more often, but then we meet lot other devotees, like this retreat. We met so many other devotees.
Oh,
How
yeah.
do we create connection with them?
You know, I think the answer is to go deeper into the Rupa Goswami's prescription for loving exchanges, like what it means. Because you can look at that and not really understand what it means, or understand it more in an external way. But closeness with people comes from, the closeness comes from being real and being open and sharing your heart, sharing your realizations, sharing your prasadam. It's all about sharing. But it's not that every relationship will be deep also. So we can't make a relationship deep because it takes the other person also. So that's one way of looking at it. And another way of looking at it is in terms of our nature. Is there anything about our nature that makes it difficult for people to relate to us, or makes it difficult for us to relate to other people? What we expect from a relationship may not be what somebody can give. So that can be upsetting for us. In my experience, personal experience, that anything you want first must begin, the desire must first begin with understanding the importance of it. If something's not important, you don't give importance to it, even though it is important. But if I don't think it's important, if I don't understand it's important, or how it's important, why it's important, the depth of its importance, then I don't really pursue it. I not pursue it with much energy. So I think any devotee that is cultivating deep relationships is doing so because they understand how important those relationships are and how much they need them. In the secular world, they say the most important thing in a relationship is trust. And you develop trust by being trustworthy. The question, how do you have a trusting relationship? Well, you have to be a person the other person can trust. And that means when you give your word, you follow through on it. So many elements of relationship. So many elements of what makes a good relationship. And that's a big one. Isn't it? Yes. Today we have such an interesting topic. It's also about relationships. So we're just answering questions while we're waiting for everyone to come. And so we just got the question, how do we develop good relationships? Well, today the class is about how to develop a good relationship with yourself. When I first did this class, it wasn't a class, it's actually a retreat. When we first did it in the retreat, you were there, Prabhupada Priya, in Mayapur. That was the last retreat we did. And it's called Our Three Relationships. And so our relationship with ourselves, I think a relationship with Guru and Krishna, and a relationship with the world. But I don't think we got beyond ourselves. And many of the devotees were commenting that, we're always talk about relationships with devotees and Guru and Krishna, but never with ourselves. And we might have a bad relationship with ourselves. And so in today's class, we will understand how relationship with ourselves spills over into relationships with other people. Because a bad relationship with ourselves can create a bad relationship with others. It's interesting. So, I don't know where everybody is, but in the interest of time, I think we need to start. And this could be the most important of all the workshops I've done. And maybe it was a mistake that I didn't do it yesterday when everybody was here. But I have so much material on this topic, I didn't have time to organize it. And so I've been organizing it since 3:30 this morning. And I went till 8:40. Because I had so much information, which if you had given me 6 hours, I wouldn't have had to organize. But I had to get 6 hours information to try to do it in an hour, and if I wasn't going to be organized, I'd never do it. So that's what I was doing. So should we start? Are we ready?
Yes.
Ready or not? Here I come. Okay. It's time to start the slideshow. The slideshow is going to start dramatically. Whoa. Gives you an idea of how dramatic this course is going to be. So, it was called self-acceptance, but self-acceptance, self-love, and self-care, it's all one. It's all one. Okay. The main thing we're going to do in this workshop is affirmations. So you don't have to believe in them or not, but I think you'll be a born-again affirmationist after we do them. It's going to be fun doing these affirmations. I think you'll appreciate it. And I think most of what I want to teach is in the affirmation itself, and just by saying it, you might just get it really well. So I'm going to go quickly until we get to the affirmations. So this question comes up: is self-love part of being Krishna conscious? So this is section 1. Letter from Prabhupada. But as devotees of Krishna, being engaged in the practical work of spreading Krishna consciousness, that is already the highest realization. That's all right. That is our mission, to deliver the world by preaching Krishna's message to others. But even higher realization, the highest realization, is to save oneself. So that answers that question. Is this part of our philosophy? Yes. And you remember the first class I did on self-envy. Well, self-love obviously is the opposite of self-envy. So if self-envy is part of our philosophy, then self-love, compassion, and so forth is. And here, of course, Prabhupada is saying it directly. Another letter. First of all, save yourself. Then try to save others. Or both. Or both things can go on simultaneously. The same example. If you want to save somebody who's drowning, you must know that I may not be washed away. I have to remain strong. Then I can save them. It's a Prabhupada conversation. Are you ready for your first affirmation? Yes. Doesn't sound like you're ready. Yes. I will read the affirmation and then we will all say it together. Self-love is not self-centeredness. It is service to the world. So please say that. turn to the person next to you and tell them this affirmation. So, just wanted to clear that up because some people have the doubt. If I'm just self-centered, I'm taking care of myself. Not at all. Not if you're a devotee. So the next section is called Self-Love Strengthens Our Resolve. This is really important. How important is it? This is amazing. This is really amazing. Here's the affirmation. I love myself too much to give into this degrading behavior. Everybody say that?
I love myself too much to give into this degrading behavior.
Okay. So, I just had a realization that I have 7 pages of notes that I just skipped over. Because I only put the affirmations and the quotes on them. Okay. Well, that's good because we need to speed up. For those of you who came late, we're talking about our relationship with ourselves. We all have a relationship with ourselves. Some have good relationships with themselves, some okay, and some not so good. And the problem that we have sometimes is that we're human and we don't like being human, and we don't like ourselves for the human things that we do. And I have been accused of teaching this and being accused of teaching some New Age Buddhist psychology when I talk about this. So, ladies and gentlemen, mothers and fathers, if I talked about being compassionate, loving, and caring to the devotees, would you have a problem with that? Or would you think, yes, that's what ISKCON should be? Yeah, right? If I talk about being loving, caring, and compassionate to yourself, then what? Is that part of our philosophy? I'm not sure. It sounds like Buddhism. Isn't that interesting? So we're going to be doing a course at the end of July or beginning of August, and we called it Devotee Self-Care, just so nobody would go mental about the title of self-compassion. Okay. Now, how many times did Prabhupada say, in this life you should finish your business and go back to Godhead? More times than I can remember. So what is he telling us to do? Take care of yourself. Right? Don't miss the opportunity. You have the human form of life, etc., etc. So many times. I was in a lecture and he said, don't come back. It's going to get really bad. In 50 years, he said, it's going to get really bad. And this is 50 years from that lecture. Interesting, man. So we know Prabhupada's always pushing us. Take care, get up, do all these things. You could redefine that as he's just telling us to take care of your spiritual life. Take care of yourself. Right? So, I mentioned the other day that I found that a lot of devotees, when they're not chanting their rounds well, it can go on for days, weeks, months, years, or even lifetimes. So, and we've all been there. And sometimes when we're not chanting well, we do absolutely nothing to improve it. We just chant bad rounds. You ever done that? Just like 16 bad rounds today, tomorrow, next day. And I would always ask myself, why? Why aren't you doing anything about it? You're just schnicking, ramming, and snicking and whamming, and you're not doing anything about it. Why? Now what's the usual answer? Something along the lines of, I don't care. I mean, although you don't say that, but what's going on internally? I mean, if you did care, would you do that? You would change, right? So there's a problem that we don't care. Sometimes we don't care enough to do good sadhana. Isn't it? Okay. So I found that when you tend to care more about yourself, you have more self-compassion, self-love, your sadhana gets better. When you have less of that, your sadhana gets worse. Why? Krishna doesn't care if I go back to Godhead. He's got enough friends up there. Right? You ever feel like that? He's with the gopis. We doesn't care what I'm doing. So, we have another affirmation. That's not the affirmation. I spaced out this one. Here's the affirmation. It's not that one. I will say the affirmation. I'm sure you can repeat it after me. It's not long. Good sadhana is one of the most self-caring actions I can do. Good sadhana is one of the most self-caring actions I can do. Yeah. Okay. So, another thing I also found, the more self-caring actions you do, the more self-caring you become. So it's good to practice self-care, even if it's material or emotional, because it spills over to your spiritual life. You tend to care more about yourself in one area, it will tend to spill over in the other. So, self-care. It's important, all right? Okay, so now this section is about self-love, strengthening our resolve. Okay, so this is a beautiful, beautiful thought. When we're tempted to do the thing we know we shouldn't do. Have you ever been there? And then you do it, and then you regret it, and then you make a vow, I will never do that again. And then you're tempted, and then you do it, and then you regret it, and you make a vow, I will never do it again, and repeat weekly, daily, monthly, whatever. Right? So we've all done it, right? This is the affirmation. I will read it and you repeat and I'll explain it a little more. I love myself too much to give into this degrading behavior. I love myself too much to give into this degrading behavior. Okay, so I have a question. Are you worth the effort you make to overcome a bad habit or an obstacle? Are you worth it? Because if you don't answer yes, you're lacking in self-compassion, and you'll need to increase it. You have to. We want to come to the point where we feel, yes, I am worth making this effort, right? So, right now, think of something, a temptation, that you may have difficulty with, little one, big one. And imagine you're in this situation now, and this affirmation comes up. You want to do this. It's that same thing that you've given into, that you regret doing, that's not good for you, and you want to do it. And this affirmation comes up, and you think, not that you think, you feel. You have to feel this, because it won't work if you don't feel it. I love myself too much to give in to this degrading behavior. In other words, I will not do this to myself. That's what self-compassion does. It prevents you from doing things which are self-destructive. Does that make sense? So this mantra is very powerful. When your mind is disturbed and it's pushing you towards doing something which you know, if I do this, I will regret. I will not be able to live with myself in some cases if I do this. You think, out of self-love, self-compassion, I cannot do this to myself. I love myself too much to allow myself to do this. It's a beautiful mantra. It's very powerful. Did you get it? Yeah. Let's say it again. Are you ready? I love myself too much to give in to this degrading behavior. You like that? It works, believe me, it works. You don't have to believe in affirmations. It works though. Okay, next section. The perfection trap. Please raise your hand if you're a perfectionist. I feel really sorry for you guys. This section is for you. Gopal, you have...
I have a request. You said something a few moments ago about one may think or feel that Krishna's got so many friends in Vrindavan. What does he care about me?
Right.
Could you expand on that?
Yeah, that's another section. That was a preview of coming attractions. So we'll get into it. Okay. The perfection trap. Okay, this... No. Okay. Every endeavor is covered by some fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work born of his nature, O son of Kunti. Even if such work is full of fault, That should be the motto of all you perfectionists. You know, tattoo that on your arm, and then you can just read it all the time. Everything has to be exactly the way. Every blade of grass in front of your house has to be facing the right direction. Hare Krishna. Yeah, some people are like that. And some of you are married to those people. So you know. Okay. Whoops. If we demand perfection from ourselves, though this is not, I wrote something that said this, but I didn't write it as well as this, so I just quoted him. I don't know who he is. Does anybody know? Henry Cloud? Anyway, he said something. He's very succinct. If we demand perfection from ourselves, we are not living in the real world. The inherent problem in the relationship between the ideal and the real is that the ideal judges the real as unacceptable and brings down condemnation and wrath on the real. Can you relate? Only two people. Because everyone else is perfect. Should I read it again?
Yes, it means they're happy with being.
What?
It doesn't mean everyone else is perfect, it means everyone else is happy with being imperfect.
Oh, okay. So we have a whole room of people happy with being imperfect, but what's the use of this class? People just, I don't have church on. Okay. I'll start from the second sentence. The inherent problem in the relationship between the ideal in this case is pure devotional service, and the real is us and our humanness, is that the ideal, I would say we allow the ideal to judge the real. We allow that conception, not a conception, but that ideal of pure bhakti to judge us who does not have pure bhakti, and it brings condemnation and wrath on the real. In other words, we're berating ourselves for not being pure devotees. Okay, let me ask you another question. Have you ever done that? Yeah, okay, now we're on the same page. This sets up an adversarial relationship between the two, your relationship with yourself, because you have a relationship with yourself. So now we have an adversarial relationship with ourselves. And like all adversaries, they move further and further apart. So we're disconnecting, alienating from ourselves, and we're allowing the ideal basically to destroy us. And that's what happens when you have high ideals, which we should. We need them, but we have to process them properly. Right, Uma? Uma is very successful. And I once read that it's difficult for people who are successful because you have a standard and you have to keep it. Like, you release a CD and it's like 10 million and you're completely stressed out about the next one because maybe it won't be as good. This is the real world. It happens to people who are very famous, very talented. They stress out because their standards are so high. Okay. Hare Krishna. Okay. So here's the important point, and we talked about this before, but perfection in Krishna consciousness is not based on external factors. It's based on the effort we make, not the result, and our mood. Krishna says, he talks about results, but he doesn't say unless you get them, I won't love you, and you won't be devotee. You won't be a good devotee. So, you remember we were talking about before about making sincere efforts, and that's really our perfection. So we have another mantra for you, and this is especially good for perfectionists. You will love this mantra. You may want to tattoo this on the other arm. Then you should be fine. Okay. My endeavor for perfection is my perfection. Please repeat.
My endeavor for perfection is my perfection.
Turn to the person next to you and tell them, my endeavor for perfection is my perfection. You are absolutely right. Okay. Okay, now, have you ever failed? Of course. Have you ever failed and felt like you were a failure? Rather than the fact that you just didn't do something right. So that happens. So we've identified the failure as essentially who we are. So when you do that, you've made a judgment about just what happened. So what happened, happened. It doesn't mean you're a failure, doesn't mean anything till you make a judgment on it. So you've made a judgment on it. Now, why would you make a judgment that I'm a failure just because you failed at something? Why would you do that? I'd just like you to think about it, and you could take that home to think about, why am I doing that? Because it's a neutral event. I mean, it's a failure, but in terms of who I am, it's neutral until I decide. You know, some people, when they fail, what they do? They get so fired up to succeed, isn't it? And other people just go home and cry. So these are judgments that we're making on the same event. Okay. It really, I'll answer your question. It's a lack of self-acceptance when you do that. You're not accepting yourself as a person who can make mistakes. That's basically what's happening. So that's why you berate yourself, because you weren't perfect. You made a mistake. Yeah. So here's a thought which has really inspired me. Oh, it's the next one. It's an affirmation. This has helped me a lot, this thought. It's a very inspiring thought. In spite of my faults and failures, I'm still trying to be a devotee. Please say that. In spite of my faults and failures. You know what's so inspiring about it? It's almost like the more failures you have, the more inspired you become that you're still a devotee. Because in spite of my weakness, in spite of all my failures, I'm still going on. Give me a pat on the back. I mean, give myself, you're still here. You're still struggling. That's glorious. There was a devotee who wrote Prabhupada a letter and said, I'm addicted to marijuana. I smoke it, I give it up. I smoke it, I give it up. I smoke it, I give it up. It's just, I don't know what to do. I try to give it up. I get up early, I chant, and do well for a few months, and I go back to it. And Prabhupada had a group of people in the room, and Prabhupada said, just see how he is struggling. He was appreciating that devotee's struggle. You can all say, wow. Isn't that nice? And when you go through the same thing, I'm so bad, I'm so useless, I'm so this and that, and Prabhupada's saying, glorious, you're struggling. That's your glory. You're still here struggling, in spite of all that garbage. Yes?
Isn't that learned behavior? Like as young toddlers, infants, whatever, we do something that's wrong. We don't necessarily take it very seriously, but then our parents or our peers or someone says,
could be.
You're such a rascal. What are you doing? What, are you going to be a failure your whole life?
Yeah.
And then that,
Yeah, of course, yeah.
that goes in your head and never comes out.
You know, all this low self-esteem, self-talk, it's all those other people who put it in your head. It's not actually you. You've just recorded it and playing it back. Which is nice to know, because you could erase the tape or throw it out. That's what it is. You're bad, you're this or that. You know, some people tell me these things, you know. I'm always telling myself I'm bad. Oh, wait a minute. Did your mother tell you that every day? And sometimes they start laughing and go, oh my God, it's exactly what she said. So it's not even your voice, it's hers. Something to ponder. Which is so nice. Prabhupada was so encouraging. Why don't we hear that voice?
Yes, why don't we?
If you did something wrong, Prabhupada would say, correct it. Once it's corrected, it's over. That was it. You did it and go on. Right? We have stories of devotees who were sannyasis who gave up sannyas, and they came to see Prabhupada a year or two later. They were so embarrassed to see him. They felt so bad. They felt that Prabhupada didn't want to see them. And Prabhupada was so encouraging and cordial to them. One of those sannyasis came, big leader in ISKCON, and he came to see Prabhupada in Vrindavan. And Prabhupada said, where's your wife? How is she doing? You know, like, you wouldn't expect that. Like, why did you turn against me? Why did you do that? Not at all. That was not Prabhupada. I used to think that about myself. I didn't do as well as I felt I should. I felt guilty. And every time I was feeling guilty, I was thinking, why am I feeling guilty? Because Prabhupada never said anything to make me feel this way. Could be because I had a Jewish mother, I don't know. But it wasn't coming from Prabhupada. Isn't that interesting? So maybe you can relate to that. You know, it's not all, you know, sometimes it's actually just coming somewhere along the line, something got put in there, and now we're interpreting things in that way. Okay. So, the class on self-hatred, we had these quotes. In spiritual life, sincerity is the first qualification. Pat yourself on the back if you think you're sincere. Don't be artificial. I'm not sincere. I don't want to be puffed up. No. Are you sincere? You must be. You're still here. You could have been out, you know, at the beach or something this weekend. So everybody, give yourself a pat on the back. Still here. I'm still sincere. That's your qualification. It is not academic qualification or financial strength which helps in this matter, but it is sincerity of purpose which helps us. Can you be sincere? My Prabhupada was asked how to be sincere. Be sincere. Yeah, that means you can be sincere, honest, serve Krishna without any agendas, just to satisfy him. We can all do it, right? Yes? At any moment we can decide to do that. So that's what Krishna wants from us, our sincerity. Okay, we have another fun one. Are you ready for a fun one? Okay, this is a byproduct of self-acceptance. Wait. No, I'm sorry. This comes after. Okay. This is entitled, It's Okay to Be Me. Turn to the person next to you and tell them, it's okay to be me.
It's okay to be me.
And then tell them, it's okay to be you also. Okay. So, some people think, well, it's okay to be me, I'm self-accepting, I'll just become lazy and apathetic. No, not at all. It's actually the opposite. When you stop berating yourself, putting yourself down, why would you become lazy and apathetic? You become lazy and apathetic by putting yourself down because you'll think, what's the use? Does that make sense? We are works in progress. Who you are right, you are who you are right now, but you can be a little better tomorrow. Yes or no? I mean, I am who I am. Like, I can't change that at this moment, but I can work to change it. So we have a beautiful affirmation. I should have brought a tattoo artist here, at least a henna artist with little stencils. You could have got them after class. That would be a good idea. T-shirts, maybe T-shirts is more practical. Okay. Here's the next one. It is okay to be me, and I am working on being more okay. Can we say it together? It is okay to be me, and I am working on being more okay. Good or good? Okay. Now here's another problem we're all familiar with. We start comparing ourselves to others. Well, I'm okay to be me, but Prabhu, you're more okay than I am, and that doesn't make me feel good. Don't fall for that. This is how we develop hatred for ourselves. Instead of self-acceptance, we start comparing ourselves. Well, we join together, and you're so much more advanced than I am now. Any of you have that problem? Makes you kind of feel useless. We're all different. Different karma, different samskaras, different abilities. We are who we are. And we all have advantages and disadvantages. It's a fact. So it's okay with how you are. And you can be more okay every day. Now, here's the good one that I was telling you about. I jumped the gun. This one is really fun. It's also okay for him to be him. What does that mean? Or her to be her. So sometimes we imagine a devotee to be more advanced than they actually are. And we don't like that. Especially if we join at the same time. So, if somebody's more advanced than you, what would be better? To be depressed by that? To be envious of them? Or to be inspired by it? Easy question to answer. Okay. When you see someone more advanced, what does it say? The process works. I was doubting it when I looked at myself, but I see them. It's working on them. That's good. He can do it, I can do it. So it should be encouraging, shouldn't it? If another's advancement doesn't inspire us, we need more self-acceptance. That means their advancement is actually harming us, which is a strange phenomenon, isn't it? Like, Prabhus, I have a humble request. Please don't advance beyond me, because it really bothers me. And it's like I feel really uncomfortable around you. It makes me feel really bad about myself. So could you just slow down for a while until I catch up? Is that a good idea? Okay. We have the affirmation, one of my favorites. Are you ready? It's okay for him to be him.
It's okay for him to be him.
Turn to the person next to you and say, it's okay for you to be you.
It's okay for you to be you.
Wow, that was a relief. Doesn't that feel, don't you feel better now? Like, you can all be you, and it's like fine with me. I can be me, you can be you. It's okay. Hare Krishna. Okay. Now, Gopal, we come to the next section, which is entitled, Does Krishna really care about you? Raise your hand if you think Krishna knows you and cares about you, or he's just some, okay. And what about he's just up there with the gopis and like, yeah, I can't compete with them, so he doesn't really like care about me. Well, let's see. Okay, so beautiful story. Well, first thing, how can you have self-love if you don't think God doesn't love you? Well, you can't. Right? It's that they work together. Right? So we have to think like that. So Guru Swami told this story that Prabhupada told about the man who had an infected finger and went to the doctor. And the doctor said, I think we should amputate your finger. After all, you will still have 9 left. I'm thinking 9 fingers. It is okay. 9 fingers is okay. Only 1 missing. It's okay. No, it's not okay. I want all 10. So Prabhupada said Krishna's like that. He doesn't think, there's Mahatma Das, whatever. We don't care. So Jiva Goswami said that. Krishna gets a particular taste from every living entity. So he wants a relationship with every single living entity because there's a specific, rasa. So Krishna wants that. He misses that. And Garuda Prabhu in his book, I guess it was his commentary in Bhagavad Gita, he says, Krishna has everything except one thing, your heart. That's what he wants. So he's got everything, but he doesn't have your heart. You have to give it to him. So Krishna does care about you, believe it or not. Okay. Time for the next affirmation. No. Letter? Is that possible? We do. Okay. Therefore, Krishna comes and he wanted to reestablish that reciprocal exchange of love, which is called bhakti. You love Krishna and Krishna loves you. Krishna loves you, even without your love. Otherwise, how you're eating. Why? You cannot live for a moment without Krishna. Krishna's mercy. That's a fact. Affirmation. Krishna loves me, therefore I give myself this same love. Please repeat.
Krishna loves me, therefore I give myself.
Turn to the person next to you and tell them, Krishna loves you. Go on a street corner today and yell it out to the pedestrians walking by. Krishna loves you. I just learned it today in class. Okay, now this next section is really important. How important is it? How I care for myself shows up in how I treat others. Okay, I'm going to read some things I wrote because it's more succinct than if I speak. Caring for yourself is necessary for you to give yourself to others. If you are not good at being kind to yourself, you will have difficulty being kind to others. We judge others according to our image of perfection. They should be as perfect as our image of perfection, even if we haven't reached that perfection. If we are presently unable to attain that perfection, it could cause us to feel bad about ourselves, which it does, as we've discussed. Then we feel frustrated with others who are not as perfect as we want them to be, which really means they're not as perfect as we want ourselves to be. You ever had that problem? Like, you're trying to go on a diet and you can't control it, and you invite your friend over for lunch and they eat like 14 plates and you want to like throw them out the window. You want them to eat a half a plate because that will inspire you. And they're doing exactly what you do. And I hate you, but you hate yourself. So I have this idea of perfection and I want you all to achieve it because I can't. But there's another problem. If you achieve it, then I become envious of you. Don't live, don't die, right? The flip side is we'll feel envious if they are as perfect as we would wish we were. So I want this perfection for myself. I don't like you if you're not because you remind me that I'm not. But when you are, you also remind me that I'm not. So I just don't like you anyway. Krishna consciousness neurosis. In other words, people who are critical of themselves tend to be critical of others. Yes or no? Yes. People who can forgive themselves find it easier to forgive others. True or not? Yes. True or false? And people who are more self-accepting find it easier to accept others and situations beyond their control. True or true? True. This is very important. In order to change the way we deal with the world, we must start to change the way we deal with ourselves. Okay, here's the affirmation. Oops. How I treat myself is how I treat others. Please repeat it. How I treat myself is how I treat others. Hare Krishna. Okay, we have one more slide, which is the exercises. Here they are. Take your pick. I don't know how this, we only have like 15 minutes. This is only an hour class today. So you can do it any way you want. Discuss with your partner, write it down. I think they're self-evident. The main thing I want you to get is to notice ways in which you are not being self-loving and compassionate, or you're berating yourself. In ways you're harming yourself. And what actions you could take to change that. That's the main idea. And if you can go a little deeper, if you are being negative towards yourself, to try to find what beliefs are working there. Like I know devotees from talking to them personally that sometimes they actually feel they deserve to suffer. And so, if you feel you deserve to suffer, you will do things to cause yourself suffering, unfortunately. And so sometimes these beliefs are there due to experience in life, whatever. I'm bad. I can't forgive myself. Why I'm a bad person. It would be wrong to forgive myself. You know, these kinds of things. Okay? All right. Hare Krishna. Go for it. 15 minutes. Can you read everything? Is it okay? Hare Krishna. What happened? Okay.